What's going on, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Madhouse. And I have an exceptional video for you guys today. If you love rules, and even if you don't, it's the future. All right. So get on board. And I am joined by the one and only Joe, but many of you, including myself, we all know him as Googly. What's going on, man? Introduce yourself, say hello. Why are you here today?
Hey, Cody. I'm GooglyGlimmers. I've been a pretty vocal guy in the community, as well as just putting googly eyes on cards. People know me as kind of the rules guy. So, um, I've also done all of the North American DLCs except for the championships, unfortunately. But all the DLCs I've been a judge at. And then for the last two, I was one of the three appeals judges. So hopefully that gives you kind of a perspective on exactly how involved I am with the rules, and that kinda thing.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's
Um,
go ahead, go ahead.
I was gonna say we're here today to talk about the rules a little bit, and then also the, judge program proposal that some community members have put together. Um, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's awesome, and it's quite the pedigree as well. The many of big events as far as DLCs and things that you've done. Now, you mentioned something you judged, and then you were part of the appeals team. What's the difference there?
Okay, so when you go to a really big event, you
Mhm.
usually have probably a ton of judges there,
Yeah,
right? You're gonna
typical.
have one head judge who's the big boss. He's in charge of all the final decisions. He'll be the guy, or she will be the guy or girl that decides on all the disqualifications, make those super important decisions. Any like any event specific rules adjustments or particular interpretations, they're the boss of that. Under the head judge, you'll usually have at least one deputy head judge who's just kinda helping out the head judge, and often for a really big event like a DLC, there'll be a few deputy head judges.
Mhm.
So there'll be a deputy head judge for the main event, a deputy head judge for the stream team, deputy head judge for side events, that kinda thing. And then under that, usually it's just floor judges, right? Floor judges is just everybody else, the guys that you see walking around, they all report to a team lead or the deputy head judge. But from Vegas onwards, PPG decided to implement an appeals judge, as well. So they're kind of a level in between the floor judges and the deputy head judges. And our job was just to kind of be that first stop for any appeals on the floor that had to do with rules questions. So not like policy issues. So not things like um, which uh, which level of play correction to give or
Mhm.
anything like that.
Yeah,
Just like if the player doesn't agree with, or even if the judge isn't sure about a particular interpretation of the rules of the game, that's where me, or I'm sorry, where I, or Phil or Russell were the other two. So me, Phil, or
gotcha.
Russell would come over and be like, "This is how it really works."
All right, and that was
Yep.
implemented at Vegas onwards or after Vegas?
Vegas onwards. So
Okay.
Vegas was the first one. Yeah.
Nice. Okay. I think I was actually there was a spot next to me where one of you guys were probably called over then because they called a judge, another judge came over and then they're like, "Hang on, we're getting somebody else." And then a big honcho came over and squashed the whole thing. Like so
Yep.
so that was
That was our
probably
job.
it then. Yeah, and that's awesome. So right there, we're talking about that's kind of an idea of what a judge program looks like. There's that many tiers. I think so you got floor, appeal, deputy, and then a
Mhm.
stream team, and then your head judge just over the everything. Like, and that's quite the tier list of for programs, making sure that things stay, you know, I want to say safe, but legal, I guess we'll say legal. And
Sure. Yeah.
and that's awesome. Like I love that. And with right now, we'll get to the proposal in a little bit because Lorcana doesn't have a judge program, but I've learned that like Magic the Gathering has a judge program and you have to go through it. There's tests, there's all this kind of stuff that goes into it. So, how in Lorcana did you kind of get into that role? How did we develop? Hey, you can be a judge and you can be an appeals judge, and you like, was there a like, is it, I don't know. You tell me, what went into that? Um, mm-hmm. 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 Mm-hmm.
So it's a little different, kind of depending on your circumstances, it's all gonna be different, right? So
Mhm.
if you're going into the DLCs, specifically, which is where the majority of my experience is, I've done a couple of local things, but primarily, I've been involved in the big events.
Mm.
So my experience was, I was just involved in the community and in the rules and kind of keeping track of things. I don't know how many people remember this, but when we first got our original comprehensive rules document, the 1.0 that released way too late after the game came out, but still. Um, my first big thing that I did, I put together a massive Google Docs with all of the kind of issues and questions and you know perceived contradictions, things like
Mhm.
that from the original CRD. So kind of my name was out there like
Mhm.
that. And then when I heard about the DLCs was starting and PPG was going to be uh, doing uh, when the excuse me
You're
when
good, you're good.
PPG was going to be doing the TO stuff, I reached out to them and Albert through them and just applied the same as anybody else did. But I mean, I had that advantage of having my
Yes.
name already known, so I think that helped a
Yeah.
lot.
Well, that I mean, there's something to be said about being active in the community, right? And so
Sure.
you were active in the community. You were being a part, like not just active, like saying words, but like a major part of the community with that document, and then you continue to be an active member of the community as well between different judge calls across different ways. But also, you just recently published an updated Google Doc with all the set 7 rules because there's been some interesting ones, right? So you kind of highlighted that. Now, what for those of you that haven't seen it yet, if they go check it out because it's going to be in the description, definitely look at it so you're prepared for set 7. But what were some of the more interesting things that you noted in that document about kind of interesting set 7 issues that might come up?
Oh gosh. Let's see. Well, so the goal of the set notes is not really necessarily to highlight interesting things.
Okay.
It's more because as we see the cards revealed, we always get the questions from people,
Yes.
before the set comes out. People are already asking questions. How is this going to work? Blah blah blah.
Mhm.
So my goal with the set notes is to kind of gather, and I don't do it by myself, by the way.
Okay.
I well, I have a lot of help from all the other like community members who are in the rules community.
Mhm.
And they help me kind of put together a big list of the most frequently asked questions.
Mhm.
So a lot of the time, it's just clarifying things that are fairly well understood by the rules community, but
Mhm.
it's kind of a new way of applying them or a slightly different circumstance that is not always necessarily super intuitive for the average player. So it's more that kind of thing.
Okay.
Um, yeah.
No, I mean, and that's that on its own. Like the number of times I've been at locals and something has come up, and we kind of have this brainstorming session, or I'll be in the because I'm a little bit more active on the discords, and shout out to the 20 lore page in the what I think it's called rules section maybe. I unfortunately have to ask a lot of questions in there, but and so I'll kind of post in there really quick and ask a question, and so I think things like that are just really interesting, like, or really important, like your set 7 notes of just highlighting commonly asked questions so people can go in there and see and be prepared for something like that is going to come up at locals. Because if one person has the question, then odds are tons of other players are going to have the same
Yeah, for
exact
sure.
question. So, but yeah, no, that's awesome. And yeah, again, that will be in the description down below. Definitely check it out. It's knowledge that you will want to have 100% as we go into a new set, and there's some interesting things coming out in the next set as well as far as how interactions might play out. We're seeing more things coming in that go into the bag, and all the more important reasons to have a judge program because as we see more interactions, Lorcana's been, from my understanding, pretty simple in the grand scheme of things as far as, the bag and how things play out and order of precedence, but we're seeing a lot more get added. So, with that, we have the judge program proposal coming out. And I know you mentioned you didn't work on that, but you've read it and it's a big part of your community. So with
Sure.
this is kind of or I guess we'll start here. So the judge program proposal, what are some of the things in there that you particularly found to be really, really important or really good for the community in general?
Um, I think well, before I get into what's super important in the proposal, I
Mhm.
kind of if you don't mind,
Yeah.
talk a little bit about the point of having a judge program
Yes.
in
Let's
the
do
first
it.
place. So, number 1, right? The first most important part of a judge program is standards. The goal of a judge program primarily is to standardize what happens when you call a judge, when a
Mhm.
player calls a judge, right? So whether you're playing in a store championships, whether you're talking to your TO at league night, on a random Friday, whether you're at DLC, whether you're at maybe a CCS 10K, right?
Mhm.
All of those situations, you call a judge with a question, the answer to that question should be the same.
Yeah. Yep.
That's the goal. And kind of on top of that or adding to that is the judge program standardizing those results, standardizing those responses, and then giving the players the confidence that that is what's going to happen. Because right now we have a huge problem with player confidence
Mhm.
in judges because there's some events that have happened recently that we don't need to get into. But just because of their personal experiences at league with like their local stores not necessarily investing
Mhm.
in a Lorcana judge because there is no such thing as a Lorcana judge, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So those are the main things. And then also I think on a third level, making it easy for a store to know that they have found somebody they could rely on.
Alright, yeah, it's all incredibly important, like, kind of spoiler, right, of the judge proposal if no one's read it yet. They go into different tiers and in one at like what level judge you are. And I think I could say I'm a lore keeper, right? This is level 1, like I have an okay-ish understanding, but we have other like we have another gentleman at our locals, Vince, who understands the rules really well, but again, it's one of those things where it he'd probably be like the level 2 or level 3 or whatnot, but it's one of those things where he because there's not an actual judge program, because there's not something that says, "Hey, if you're holding a set champs, then you need to have a judge there." A lot of places don't know, so then he understands the rules really well. We go to like let's say we go to another store we haven't been to or doesn't know him very well. Something interesting comes up and he's like, "Hey, that's you made that judge call, but that's super wrong." Well, the store owner has no reason to believe him because
Mhm.
who are you? Like, uh,
Right.
so standardizing, and I love that, being military, I love standardization. It's makes the gears go, right? So I love that. No, so I'm really glad you brought that up, especially, uh, why there needs to be a judge program. It's really important. But yeah, I kind of spoiled a little bit. We got lore keepers, and I really like that one, the level 1. But what else about the judge proposal? What kind of stood out to you of yeah, this is really good for the community?
I think that one thing that's made real clear in those I've got it open on my window over here, in case you're wondering why I'm
Yeah,
looking over this
you're
thing.
good. You're
Um,
good.
but one thing that's super clear is that as you progress through the levels, it's not just about knowing the rules,
Hmm.
right? It's also about developing your skills as a judge, myself included, honestly. Before I started working as a judge,
Hmm.
I was very much like, I know the rules. I don't care about the rest of it.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
like the soft skills of working as a judge, dealing with people, um, understanding like when to step in on a mistake that you see, or understanding how to deal with a call when some players are upset, how to deal with a call where like you don't have any way to track back a gameplay
Hmm.
error and you're
Yeah.
just going off of what the players are saying, that kind of stuff. All of that is kind of covered under the mentorship aspect of things, which is
Hmm.
really great.
Yeah.
Um, and as I understand it, I'm not a Magic judge in any sense of the word. I've actually never played Magic in my life.
Okay.
Um, but I understand their unofficial judge program that they are currently running, that the community is running, I guess,
Mm.
also has a similar thing with their mentorship, so it's great to see that stolen from there,
Yeah.
um, and elsewhere, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Um, and then all the way up to, like, the master judge where they're taking on, like, the full leadership role, that's kind of a head judge level,
Mhm.
so you have to have that full, like, operational understanding of a whole tournament with side events and all that stuff in there, so there's a lot of different levels of understanding that go into being a judge beyond just memorizing the comprehensive rules document,
No,
and
that's
it's great to see that all reflected in here.
yeah, like, that's actually I hadn't even thought of that, and, like, being completely honest, like, I hadn't thought about, all the rest of it that goes into it because, yeah, it's one thing to know the rules and I guess that's probably why, like, the tier 1 and tier 2 are relatively short as far as your requirements, and then you get into tier 3 and tier 4, and I think it's like a page each on their own,
Right.
and I think that's really important because when you're making judge calls, like, it's a big deal. Like that one judge call could be a game deciding decision. And now you're dealing with someone that's really upset with you. Maybe that, you know, took a golden Mickey from them, whatever it may be. And so that's knowing knowing those soft skills, knowing how to, deliver, right? How to deliver what you're trying to do or how to maybe it is a they did so much that it's kind of one of those things of like, hey, this is a forced loss. Like, I'm sorry, it is what it is. But I don't like you left three cards on the side of the field and didn't shuffle them back into your deck. How do I, how do I rectify that? Just have you shuffle them back, And
Yeah.
so I think that's all really important. I'm glad you brought that up as well.
I just thought of something. You mind if I just
Yeah,
jump in
by
before
all
we move
means.
on?
Yeah.
I think one thing that Lorcana has going for it that's really great, in my perspective from my perspective, is
Mm,
that we have the play corrections guide that tells acting judges, how they're supposed to deal with play mistakes, right?
mhm,
And one thing that we have that's very different from a lot of other games is that we're very, very um, forgiving
mm,
of mistakes that could be accidental, right? We do have the cheating clause. So if the
yes.
judge determines through an investigation that an innocent appearing mistake was cheating,
Mhm,
we can go straight to a disqualification, right? But if there's not sufficient mistake is intentional, we're very forgiving of innocent mistakes, right?
mhm,
And a lot of people, I think, have this perception that, and I'm not trying to rag on anybody here, but I think a lot of people have the perception that when a mistake is made, judges should be assuming that it's on purpose and then
mhm.
proving that it's not.
Yeah.
And so they get kind of, when they see it like on stream, right? When they see a mistake on stream, the reaction from the community who's watching tends to be a lot more strict,
Yes.
or asking for a lot harsher consequence than the PCG allows.
Mhm.
So what I would feel like a judge program would add to that discussion is like, we know these judges are qualified. We know these judges know what's supposed to happen here. Um, so there's no need to be calling for disqualification for somebody that accidentally drew two cards because
Yes.
the judges saw that, they've intervened, they've followed the PCG. We can trust that the correct, you know, play correction has been assigned because they are a level 2 judge, right? They
Mhm.
know what's going on. So I feel like the qualification levels would help address that kind of immediate jumping to, it's an invalid game state, give them a game loss kind of reaction, you know?
Yeah. No, it's funny you bring that up because that was, we had the GTA 2K Invitational yesterday, so shout out to ETB for putting on that event, but JDZ and I were casting it, and something happened, and we're like, the chat immediately is just grabs it's like when they're marching on Beast Castle, right, with Gaston. They grab
Mhm.
the torches and pitchforks and they're like, we're gonna do this. And so it's funny you bring that up because again, without the judge program, without, highlighting all these different not rules, but guidelines, like guidebooks and the things like that. A lot of people don't know they exist. Like a lot of people don't know that they're the different ways that judges have to make calls and things like that. So
Yep.
again, a judge program highlights that. It gives people an opportunity because one of the things with the judge program, it looked like, or I think I had read in there that all the material was going to be free. Is that correct or
Um, honestly, I don't remember.
oh,
But yes, I think
okay.
the idea of the judge proposal is that it's run by Ravensburger centrally,
Mhm.
so it's adopted by them, not necessarily in its exact form, but
Yeah.
and then provided for free and no cost to judges, right?
Yeah.
Um,
No,
and I
so
think so. Go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say, so with it being free, like it's open, it's material that now hopefully would be in all in one place. So someone could go in there, and maybe I don't want to be a judge. Maybe I have no inclination to be even a level one judge. But at least I know now there's a place where I could go to get all the rules and all the material to know like to understand what judges are having to do, why they make the calls they have to make, what would happen if I called a judge, or what should happen if I call a judge. And I think that's all really important because um, I'll bring up Melbourne, right?
Oh no.
I know. We saw the video that Spessy did, right? It was a great video, and we heard talk about well uh in the Discord judges page, this thing had just gotten announced, or somewhere something had just gotten announced that wasn't, in the actual like new rule book. And correct me if I'm wrong anywhere here, but I like centralized information, standardized information. We just kind of talked about it. And that's one thing I would love about a judge program is now all this information is in one place so everybody knows where it's at. Everybody knows what's happening. And I think that's really cool. So, um
Yeah. One I mean, I don't know necessarily that a judge program is gonna completely fix our issue with slow communication
mhm.
from Ravensburger because they are under a licensing agreement with Disney, and
Yes.
Disney are very protective of their IP,
Yeah.
and everything that Ravensburger put out as a press release or as, like, a public statement of any kind has to be approved by
Mhm.
Disney as far as I'm aware, so like, if there's an omission in the rules and it gets a correction
Mhm.
or a clarification, getting a Discord message from Kyle about it is one thing.
Mhm.
Getting it published as an update on a website is not necessarily gonna be
Yes.
any easier just because it's collected
Yes.
together, right?
Well,
So, I would definitely love to see that happen.
yes.
I hate that there are some rulings that we have to reference a Discord message for,
Mhm.
um, but that's just the way it is right
It
now, so
it's just the way it is. It In the military, we have a program, it's called the read file, and in this read file, it's where anytime headquarters, Air Force, headquarters, Department of Defense makes a change to a major regulation, they put this blip in there, and it's pretty much just a fancy Excel file. So you're supposed to go in there, you're supposed to check this read file like once a month, and mo if you really care, you check it more than once a month. But just something like that, if we had something like that that said, hey, you go in there and check this thing once a month and you'll see if there's been any changes. So now we're not having to track Discord messages and things like that. It's kind so I don't know, something like that. It doesn't have to be like an official change to the rulings every single time, but a collective of Discord messages that the whole world can see because not everyone's in every Discord page,
Mhm.
so that sometimes makes things a little difficult. But I don't know. It's a great start, and I think I'm interested to see what happens with the proposal. I know Ravensburger kind of hinted at a judge program a while back, and I don't know if that was before I started playing or not, but and I don't know if maybe they've been waiting to see what the community would do, and maybe this is the thing that will kind of rocket it or whatever, get it going. But one thing I did want to ask you
Yeah.
is, with no judge program, how do you have any advice for players in their local community if they wanted to like kind of step up and be like, "Hey, I want to start judging set champs or I want to get better at doing this." Like what are the I don't know, what kind of advice would you have for them?
It's difficult, right? Because
Mhm.
you need to kinda convince a store that you know what you're
Yes.
doing,
Mhm.
that you're worth, I don't know, investing in or whatever.
Mhm.
One I guess an easier way to get in on it, is to kind of volunteer
Mhm.
at your league, not necessarily, like, just judge, like, still play, but kind of
Mhm.
just kinda let it known around your players that you're trying to get more into the rules side of things, and if they have a question, kind of that's fine, interrupt your game and ask or whatever.
Mhm.
If you're trying to up your knowledge, obviously you should be in the official Discord so you can hop into the rules channel there, and feel free to ask questions in there. There's always somebody who's there to answer something.
Mhm.
Um, and there's also the Lorcana Rulebook Hub, which is a another Discord server that the rules community has going on. And I can get you the link for that for the description
Okay.
if you
Yeah.
want. But that's run by Speedy or Trevor. He's also been a DLC judge. He's been on the stream team for the last couple, or he's been the stream lead for the last couple of events. And we have a whole ton of great judges in there.
Mhm.
We run a rules quiz every week for testing. You test yourself
Hmm.
on some strange circumstances, or and we have a whole bunch of FAQs in there, and obviously a rules questions forum as well. A whole bunch of resources. You can read through my set notes is a great way to get up to speed. Obviously,
Mhm.
um, it's there's there's kind of two aspects to it, right? There's making sure you're up on the rules, which is just using all the resources that are out there and making sure you've kind of read through them and you've assimilated them.
Mhm.
Um, and then there's the aspect of actually getting to do it, which is
Yeah.
a little it can be a little more challenging depending on your area, depending on how many events people run, depending on who's already there working in
Yeah.
your area. I do not suggest judging for free.
Mhm.
If you are taking on a role as a judge, not an official judge, but as a judge at a store, they should be paying you somehow, right? Um, a lot of the time that'll be in product.
Mhm.
If that's your jam, that's totally up to you. You can negotiate with the store just fine. If you pop into Rulebook Hub, we are happy to help you decide if your
Yeah.
offer is reasonable, that kind of thing.
Mm.
Um, yeah, but don't do it for free.
Yeah. Hey, good advice. It's, like what's your worth, right? I mean, if you really want to do it for free, but I will put this out there. If people start doing judging for free, it starts to like word spreads, right? Stores do talk to each other. Like so keep that in mind.
Exactly.
You might not mind, but then you're also kind of hurting the entire judging community that
Yeah,
where I from what I understand, judges you don't judge to become millionaires. You judge because you just thoroughly enjoy
that's true.
what you do. So yes, passion is a big part of it, but getting what you're worth is also, very important in life. So, but before we turn into a TED talk, I'm like, well, sweet man. I don't know. We kind of talked about quite a bit of, what a judge program is, why it's important, how people can kind of get into it in the meantime, because, well, hopefully the proposal, takes off and we see something. But what other kind of things do you think that's important for the community to know? Anything that you'd like to pass on? I don't know. The floor is yours.
Oh man. I think just kind of what we were just talking about, right?
Mhm.
Judges working not for nothing, but also encouraged by their kind of passion for the game
Mhm.
and encouraging their community. Be nice to them, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
No judges working your event making $1,000,000. There are people, I'm sure, who get into judging because they're there to exert power over people, right?
Mm,
Those people exist. I like to believe it's just a few. I don't wanna think it's anything like a majority of people, but they do exist. But for the
Mhm,
most part, I think most judges are out there, they want you to have a good time, right?
mhm,
They're there to facilitate the game. They're there to make sure everything goes fair. They're there to make sure everything is fun, nobody's spoiling the day by being a jerk. That's part of our job as well, you know?
mhm.
So, if you have to call a judge, be nice. Even if you don't like what they have to say,
Yep,
you know? The judge, they're probably 95% certainly just there to try to help everybody have a good
yep.
time. Don't yell at them.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I mean, it's the same. It's like it's the same for any like referees in sports games. Like a lot of times, you guys don't want to have to make the call that you have to make, but unfortunately, you were put in the position to have to make it, and that's just the way it goes. I know the very first set champs that I ever did, I just started. Unfortunately, I'd been playing for like 2 weeks, so no one come at me, but I put my hand down and accidentally for an aerial because I looked at the 4 cards, took my song, and then I picked up my ink pile and started playing my
Happens
ink.
a lot.
Yep, and I learned my lesson, but and then I to make it worse though, I started playing my ink pile, and I realized what I did, so I called the judge on myself, and the judge had to make a call, and, it sucked, but I did it to myself, alright? So yeah, guys, don't it I know you're upset, I'm sure the thing happened, but you kinda put yourself in that position. So don't go with the judges.
Sometimes.
Sometimes, yes,
Sometimes.
sometimes. So, but the moral of the story is don't go with the judges. Leave it be. All right. If you don't like it, become a judge. All right. Like it's that well, it's that easy, quote unquote. So,
Mhm,
but
mhm.
no, I like that. I'm glad you said that because we know how much people like to get upset with the rules, the people that enforce rules, whether it's refs, whether it's cops, whether it's judges, whether it's QA, quality assurance members in the corporate world, right? It's everywhere, but they're also important. So, anything else?
Follow me on social media, I
Well,
guess.
with that, what's your social media, man?
Um, GooglyGlimmers everywhere.
All right.
I've got Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram, YouTube, although I haven't uploaded a YouTube video for a hot minute. My microphones are all in storage, which is why I'm using this ugly guy right now.
Hey, it's working. Hey, I think the sound quality is pretty good, man. So you got the green little thing on the end of it. It looks good. So,
Yeah,
well, sweet
fair enough.
man. I think we'll call it there then. I think we kind of
Perfect.
will answered a lot of questions, and I hope that people kind of see this and get excited. All right. And but with that, ladies and gentlemen, as always, thank you so much for coming on, man. But remember, above anything else, always stay happy and healthy. Until next time, guys.